business and industry. We're going to make sure that those small communities and farmers and ranchers throughout the rural parts of this country are connected to the worldwide markets and to the worldwide information systems through expanded broadband. We have $2.8 billion available. We're going to have public hearings to solicit comments. We're going to encourage folks to give us information as to how best we can create opportunities in unserved areas, smaller areas across the country that have not had access to broadband that need it in order to be able to be prosperous in the future. We're going to continue to invest in rural housing and in rural business development, and we're going to try to aggressively promote the Farm Bill's micro-enterprise opportunities so small businesses throughout rural America can prosper. We have a small amount in this year's budget. We ask for an increased amount in future budgets. All of that designed to create off-farm job opportunities and a framework and platform for growth of small business in rural America. We're going to be quite aggressive in that area. We're also going to be aggressive in food safety. Make no mistake about it, we all have a stake not just in making sure that our food is safe, but in the market aspect of it. Ask any peanut farmer in America today how things are going. Ask anybody in the peanut business how things are going. Food safety impacts and affects people's decisions, buying decisions. And so it's important for us to modernize that system. It's important for us to continue to look for ways to reassure Americans that their food is safe. Today in America, 5,000 Americans over the course of the next year will die from some form of foodborne illness. 375,000 Americans will be hospitalized as a result of a foodborne illness, and according to the CDC, up to 76 million Americans will have some foodborne illness impact which might not require hospitalization. That obviously speaks to the need for a more modern, efficient system. USDA needs to be at the center of that, needs to be working in concert with the FDA, needs to make sure that we're communicating and integrating our efforts to assure Americans that we are indeed protecting them. We're also mindful of the need to address specific issues that are affecting and impacting certain regions of the country. We are aggressively looking at the situation in dairy to try to figure out ways in which we can provide some assistance and help by buying down some of the surplus commodities, working on creating opportunities for export. We're also mindful of the situation in California with the drought. We have an interagency task force that was recently established with the Department of Interior. We're going to look for opportunities and ways in which the federal government can help those who are struggling with drought. We're going to develop a strategic plan for our forests, because our forests are in fact a reservoir, if you will, for Western America and their water supply. 60 million Americans count on that Forest Service to do its job in order to be able to provide the water that's necessary. We want to make sure that we adequately fund firefighting apart and distinct from the forest budget so that the forests can be properly maintained so that we don't have a continuation of these intense wildfires. We are going to aggressively promote a resolution of our civil rights claims. Again, this has been a significant stain on the USDA's history. We want to remove that stain. And we also want to continue to work on exports, continue to implement the Farm Bill and the safety net provisions of the Farm Bill. But we're also looking at the future. And I think it's important for us to focus on the future. And that, I think, there's a tremendous opportunity for rural America if it aggressively engages in the conversation that's going to take place in this country over the course of the next couple of years about climate change. There are tremendous opportunities, income opportunities for farmers and ranchers in climate change discussions. If you establish a cap-and-trade system, no doubt there will be an offset program as part of that cap-and-trade system. There will be companies and industries that will be unable to meet the cap, and so they will look for ways in which they can reduce their exposure, ways in which they can reduce the amount of money that they have to pay for additional credits as they get their house in order. There are many opportunities in terms of how you plant your crop, what you plant, where you plant it, how you fertilize it, what you feed your livestock, what you do with the manure produced by that livestock, how you can capture and use the gases generated by that livestock, what you do with plant residue, what opportunities you may have to capture and sequester carbon on ground that you own and operate, how efficiently and effectively you can operate your own farm in terms of changing from fossil fuel reliance to a reliance on more renewable energy. All of those are income opportunities in an offset program. And some have suggested that the income opportunities can amount to billions of dollars, far more than what we, for example, utilize or use in terms of some of our farm safety net programs. So there is tremendous opportunity here. And it's important and necessary for farmers and ranchers to be at the center of that conversation, to be engaged in that conversation, for leaders and organizations that they are part of to be engaged in that conversation. It can be at times easy for folks in this town to forget about the role that agriculture and forestry can play. It is up to us, it's up to you, it's up to me, it's up to Tom, it's up to organizations like Farmers Union to make sure that voice is heard in these conversations. Do not let this opportunity go by, because it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to really bring additional prosperity back into rural communities. We have a real mission here. We have a real opportunity to help the country. We have an opportunity to be compensated for the use of our land and the way in which we farm that can reduce the carbon footprint. Agriculture is about 7% of the carbon footprint of America today. It can be, according to some, as much as 20 to 25% of the solution. And I don't know of any other industry, any other aspect of our economy with greater potential in terms of income opportunities. As most folks look at climate change, they look at the cost side. I think it's important for agriculture to look at the possibility side. Now, let me finish with this, and then I'll be glad to answer questions. Well, I won't be glad to answer questions. I'll try to answer them. This is a tough time. I make the mistake every morning of getting up early and turning on the television. That's a big mistake, because you listen to these talk shows and you listen to people pontificate about the difficulties this country faces, as if this country has never had tough times, as if this country has never been challenged, as if this is a first in the history of America. You know, we have been challenged. Those of us who live in rural communities have been challenged repeatedly over the course of the last several decades. We know about tough times. We know how to struggle. We know how to survive. We know how to fight. We know how to be passionate about the future, and we know how to hang on. And we know how to make sure that our youngsters have a brighter and better future. That is what America is all about. That's what the Farmers Union is all about. And I will say, I think it's important and necessary for ordinary Americans to essentially say to all the talking heads, all the folks who are pontificating about the difficulties this country faces and trying to determine, are we going to survive? Hell yes, we're going to survive, and we're going to be stronger for it. How do I know that? How do I know that? Because I worked with farmers in the 80s during the farm crisis in Iowa. And I saw people walk into my office, my law office, and they were faced with foreclosure, and they were faced with difficulty. But they understood and appreciated that what they were about was something that was vital and significant to this country, a value system, and you all represent it. A value system at its core understands several things. First and foremost, it is important for us to maintain an optimistic look at the future. That is what the American experience is all about. A value system that also understands that it's our responsibility to make things better for the next generation, because that's what our folks did for us. And through hard work and sacrifice and savings and difficulties and struggles and passion, you can get through any difficult time. Family and community can support you. I just want to tell you a brief story that I think really sums it all up. I was in Dubuque, Iowa about a year or so ago, and I was at church, and the priest came out and he decided he was going to give a sermon to the children before Mass started. And he said that, I'm going to talk to you, boys and girls, about the parable of Jesus feeding the 5,000. And he explained the parable. You remember, Jesus is giving a sermon. He sees 5,000 people. They're hungry. He says to his disciples, go feed the people. and his disciples were dubious. They were skeptical. I guess they were